So I just finished your new book, Humans, and it is really, really good.
Right.
You interviewed thousands of people across, or tens of thousands even, across like 40 different countries.
Right.
What's the biggest thing you've learned about the human experience?
Well, how to distill this? I think the most interesting way to comment on this is what I've learned about life as it is lived versus life as it is depicted in the media.
Mm,
Um, I think what happens when we're consuming media is that we don't necessarily realize or recognize the incentives that are involved. Ultimately, media is a storytelling business. Even very hard news media. It's like you want these stories to be factual, but ultimately they're stories. And what sells subscriptions and what's gets people to watch are the stories, and you want them to be stories that are about impactful things and current events and politics and stuff that makes a difference in the world and are factually, but there are stories. Knowing that the media industry is driven by stories, then you have to ask yourself, what are the elements of a story that make it most marketable, that make it most successful? And what makes a good story is conflict. What makes a story is sex, violence, all of these kind of extreme things, the same things that make a Hollywood movie good. And so what happens is when you're consuming the world through media, you are seeing the world through a lens that highlights and skews towards those extremes. Because what you do is you have somebody going into a country to tell a story, and they need to tell a good story to sell newspapers or to get people to watch. So they are looking for elements of life being lived that are filled with conflict or violence.
mm,
So what happens is you get a lot of stories about terrorism, crime. You get a lot of stories that are sensational or have a lot of sex. Um, and you can form an image of these places based on how you consume them in media that is much more frightening and extreme than you will find if you get on the ground. And the way that I describe it is that 99% of life being lived has nothing to do with politics, has nothing to do with crime, yet that's all we read about in the media. That, if you stop people one on one and ask them, what is it that you're thinking about all day long? What is it that you're carrying around with you? There's very similar themes in those answers that, we're mostly worried about our families. We're mostly worried about our son's drug addictions, our father's illness, our wife's, our wife's struggles with alcohol, whatever. And those are kind of on the other side, those are the struggles. Our daughter's graduation, the person we met that we were wildly in love with. Like these are the stories that represent the life being lived. In countries, even countries like Iraq, even countries like Pakistan, where all you hear coming out through the media are about the conflicts going on. Still, 99% of life being lived is inside the home, and is much more intimate and relationship driven.